Like when I first got here, I was just a walking ball of anger when people would just stereotype. You don't have to stay nearly as late. You get paid a lot more for doing a lot less. I mean, overall, like, how can I complain about a country where I've made the biggest improvements in my life?
What's your impression of Chinese people?
It is a sensitive.
Don't mind me. That's
No, I mean, I'll answer honestly, because it's like when I said earlier that I don't think China is for everybody, that's part of the reason.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, it's such an Igua country. It's a very like patriotic country.
Patriotic, yeah. It's like everybody loves our country.
So there's things like I respect that type of thing because I don't have that. Like for my own country.
You don't love Canada?
I mean, I don't, it's not that I hate Canada. I just, I don't feel so attached to it. You know, like my identity isn't derived from being Canadian.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that China puts a lot of emphasis, and Chinese people have a huge connection to the idea of what China is in a global sense.
Yeah.
So, that part of thing I respect, and it's also something that I don't fully understand. Because I personally, I think it's a little bit illogical because I had no choice to be born where I was born.
No, we don't have choice, yeah.
And yet I still respect someone that can be that dedicated to loving their own country.
Loving a random country you're born in.
Right. But, you know, so there's that. I think there are a large number of Chinese people that are super intelligent, super passionate about what they do, very focused on delivering results in whatever vocation that they're in. And I think I respect their work ethic. On the flip side, there are some people, like any kind of work industry, like if I have to have my air conditioner fixed, I dread it because I know I'm going to be doing most of the cleanup. Right? Like there's just kind of like, okay, it's fixed. And I'm like, what? It looks like a bomb went off in here, bro. You don't clean up after it? You know? So that there's things like that. But I mean, overall, like how can I complain about a country where I've made the biggest improvements in my life? Like I've gained the most experience here. I've met some of the best people here. You know, being whether they're Chinese or foreign. You know, because I think that's an interesting part as a foreigner living in China because you naturally, you're always more comfortable talking to people that you can talk in your own language with, right? You know, and that's true of all my students that I send over to the United States. So every time I catch up with them, they're with a group of Chinese friends. Yeah. And that's just normal. Because
we always stay together.
Yeah.
No matter where we are.
And that's the thing, right? So that's another thing I really kind of respect too, right? Because you can always find a sort of, even if they're from the other side of China, two Chinese people come together and they feel very comfortable with each other. And I respect that too. I think a lot of foreigners get upset, needlessly upset, because they don't necessarily understand. Yeah,
that kind of love.
Well, that, and it's just sometimes these situations where Chinese people maybe haven't come into contact with many foreigners. You're going to get the same questions over and over and over again, you know. And then there's always this, oh, you're from Canada, and then, oh, it's a beautiful country. I mean, you don't know that. You know.
We don't know that.
Yeah, you've never been there. But I appreciate that. But it's just like, you know, there are always assumptions made about, and just being lumped in as a foreigner is also, and this happened in Japan, this is not exclusive to China, but there is just an assumption of who you are, what you're like, what your personality is, you know, how you smell, just a number of different things where it's if you're not, or if you're overly sensitive to that, you're not going to enjoy living here. You're going to get frustrated with things pretty quickly. But and it still frustrates me. I've become so much better. Like when I first got here, I was just a walking ball of anger. When people would just stereotype. But after living here for so long, I get it. It's kind of part of the ethos of and I think a lot of people are, you know, with things that they've never experienced, they have questions and they just want to know.
Yeah. They're just curious about the outside world.
Yeah.
Especially for Chinese people who's never been outside of the country.
Right.
I've never been talking to any people from outside the country, so they're like really curious about you.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
But also in my life, I don't, I spend time with people who are interested in Western culture, and we're friends because you speak fluent English, and you've been to places, and you have an understanding of Western culture. So I tend to spend time with people like that rather than people who don't understand me. Why would I? I want to surround myself with people that create a positive environment for me, and people I can feel inspired by and motivated by. At the same time, you want to get in and experience the culture, but after 13 years, I've really had enough of experiencing that aspect of the culture. So
you also learn how to let go.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah. When something annoying happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You'd be like, it's just the culture here, just China, so it's fine.
It's true.
It's not hurting me, just let go.
But it's also like, Beijingers are like that too, because there's just like, there's something that'll happen every given day here that just makes no sense. Like you'll just sit and you'll just be like, what?
Yeah, why?
Is that necessary? Why are you
doing that?
Driving in the mall? Like, why are you in a scooter in the mall? What's going on right now? Yeah. Or whatever happened. You just kind of like, okay, that's Beijing.
Okay. So you mentioned that you have been working in China, but not just in Beijing, for like more than 10 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? So what's the difference between working here and working, well, let's say in America or like in a Western country? What's the biggest difference, do you think?
Now, it's communication. And it's not a language barrier thing.
Yeah.
It's just you have a meeting at 4:00, so your expectations are, okay, I'm gonna have a meeting
at 4:00,
and you will, but then all of those details, none of the details are ever given to you.
So
right?
You know nothing.
You know nothing, and there's just always a surprise of some kind. So you have to be able to adapt to those things.
Yeah.
Like even on Friday, they said, okay, you have parent-teacher meetings, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I looked, and they booked it during a class time.
Wow.
So I said, are my classes canceled for the afternoon? Oh, no, you're still going to teach your classes.
But they're at the same time.
Yeah, but I have parent-teacher meetings at this time, too. Oh, well, you figure it out. Figure what out? Okay. So... And I did,
didn't know the time was overlapped or something? Like
they just didn't care. Like, they just, figure it out. Like, and then that's, even... I work, my wife and I have had companies for 10 years, and even my wife will just make assumptions like, well, you speak English, so you can teach AP biology. No, absolutely not. I failed biology. I am not a science person.
Biology is hard.
Yeah, but well, too bad. I made the class. I already made the class, so you have to teach a year of AP biology. All right, well, I better learn biology. Then, things like that are, and that comes down to, and then there's always this sort of, I consider it an excuse. Well, I don't speak English is my second language. This is not about the language. This is about communicating information, right? I think, so that's sort of the negative side of it, I will say. What I will say, because there is a positive side to this too. As a foreigner, you're also held to far less expectations as well. Right? You don't have to stay nearly as late. You get paid a lot more for doing a lot less.
It's like a privilege.
Right. And it's because it's like, well, they're foreigners, so they don't know. They don't need to do that stuff, or it's just not that they don't do that in their culture, so they don't have to do it here. Right? So there's trade-offs. Yeah. But you have to recognize the positives. If you just focus on those things like, oh, by the way, you have an extra class, we just added it to your schedule, and you freak out. Yeah. Well, what about all the other stuff that maybe you're blissfully ignorant about, right?
Yeah, there's always a good side and a bad side.
Right, and I think too often, foreigners that will speak negatively about their experiences in China are focusing on only the negative things without realizing how much freedom they actually had. And you're here because you make so much more money than you do back home. Just straight up. That's why foreigners are here. Like a lot of them, right? Yeah. Maybe you come over because you want to experience a different culture, but like to work at a school, you're getting paid twice as much as you would back home, and the students are twice better behaved.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot more respect for teachers here.
Chinese kids here are pretty obedient.
Yeah, like normally, right? And you don't have to worry about getting shot or stabbed.
No.
That's a plus, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you like the most about Chinese people?
I think what I like the most about Chinese people is they're probably their passion for just being Chinese.
Or just being us.
They're just being, and it just the way that they're able to enjoy life. Because you see, we talk about street food, which is one thing, but that's a cultural thing. The way that Chinese people are dedicated to their family, and every meal is an important.
Yeah,
it's not only about the food; it's about the time.
About the time you spend together.
Yeah, and even just the sharing of the food is like a communal sort of thing that we don't generally do in the West, and that probably should have been one of the strange things that I noticed, because that's not only it's Asian culture more than it's not only Chinese culture, but I can remember when I first moved to Japan, I ordered my food, and then it came to the table and people started eating it, and I was just like, why are they eating my food? I didn't realize.
I ordered it.
Yeah, and I didn't want to say anything because I was like, it was my second day. But I was like, that's fine.
So people just share food on the table.
Yeah,
so that's pretty similar to Chinese culture. Yeah,
and so
I do that too.
But I admire the way that it's a there's and all of the holidays and the way that it's people get so excited and passionate about the same thing. I mean, we do, I guess you could say like. In the West, if you're Christian, you get excited about Christmas or things like that. But it's not even the same sort of excitement, I don't think, because it's not attached to that's a religious thing. So not everybody celebrates it. Whereas like Chinese New Year is a cultural thing.
There's a cultural thing,
right?
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between those, anomalies there, and it's really, that's when I spend the most time with my family too. My extended Chinese family.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I think is really unique to Chinese people, is that passion for the culture and everything.
For the culture, for the family.
Yeah, for family.
Yeah.
I will temper this by saying there's a lot of comparisons. Like Chinese people always say, we care about our families more. I think you care about your families in different ways.
In different ways.
Right?
Yeah.
So I am often told, you value independence, whereas we value community. Like, really? You don't want to go to your parents. You just have to by obligation. Come on now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't tell me that you value that more. You're going because you have to.
Sometimes we go. It's not because like out of love or something. Like out of responsibility.
That's what I mean.
Parents, and then it's a really big part of the Chinese culture that you need to like take care of your parents like when they get old. It's not even a thing that if you want to or not. It's literally in the law. Like if you don't do that, your parents can literally sue you.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that is something
know that.
I did not know that.
They've put that in the law. I think about I don't know, probably 10 years ago.
Wow,
it's a thing now. Yeah, it's like if you don't, I think it's like if your parents is over like 70 or there's like a certain year there. So if they're older than that year, and then if they have kids but their kids don't take care of them, so they have the right to sue their kids for not. Taking care of them. So that's also what makes it really, really important part of the Chinese culture that we,
Well, thank God we don't have my. Well, I'd be subpoenaed by both my parents.
Yeah. So that's a really, 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 that's like a really important part of our culture.
Definitely.
Like every Chinese person that might, start giving their parents money, like when they started working. So like every month they would probably give their parents like a couple thousand or if you make a lot, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but usually Chinese parents wouldn't want you to spend that much money or
I know.
Give them that much money.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Like,
but it's like an obligation. It's like your responsibility.
Yeah. I give my parents money too. I give my mom. My dad passed away last year. Well, that's okay, but I give my mom. Like, that's what I mean. Is I take care of my mom in that way too, to make sure that she's okay, and make sure she's, can go on vacation. She's retired, so I want to make sure that she is spending her time, enjoying her retirement and traveling and doing the things that she wants to do.
Yeah, but you do that a lot.
Yeah, but also a little bit of obligation as well. I love my mom, of course, but I also I feel because she raised me.
Can you tell us about one of your favorite Chinese coworkers or friends?
That most of those would be in the music industry. And this is why. I mean, I got some good coworkers at my job, but the music industry to me is like a utopian society.
Yeah, okay, you can talk about anyone.
Because I think it just is that. It doesn't matter where you're from. None of it matters. It's it's so stereotypical to say that music is a universal language, but it really and truly is. And I don't even mean just like playing it and feeling it, but when you're a musician, and I travel extensively, and I go to jam sessions all over the world, like all over the place, right? So, and I know as long as you can play, you gotta be on a level that you can walk into a jam session and get up and play. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for someone who is not at a professional level, but you go in there and you just you're grooving with somebody. I went to Thailand last 2 summers ago, and went to a jam session. Got up there and you play with everybody, and then afterwards you start talking to everybody, and you get their unique experiences and things like that. So for me, those are my favorite type of people in China as well, because I'll sit down with my friend Marshall in Shenzhen, who's another guitar player, and we'll just talk about music for hours and hours and hours.
He's a musician as well.
Yeah, he's an incredible guitar player. All my guitars, I have a lot here, but I have 22.
Wow.
In Shenzhen, plus all of my other studio equipment and other basses and just a lot of musical equipment. And I said to him, I'm just gonna put it all at your studio. He's got a repair shop, studio, music, the whole thing.
Package.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey man, can I just leave my guitar stuff with you because I can't take it with me? And he said, yeah, no problem. And it was a lot. It would fill up an entire room.
Oh wow!
So he took it, and I said, yeah, feel free to play whatever you want to play. And he does. He's using it for recording, and he's even put some in display cases. It's really nice, right? Really cool. That's what I'm saying. Or for this Hendrix show, I wanted to have a 4-string bass, and I only brought my 5-string bass. I want a very specific bass because Hendrix bass player played a very specific bass, and I wanted that bass.
Okay.
And I asked a bunch of my bass playing friends, but nobody could really provide anything. But my Chinese bass playing friend who lives in Mongolia.
Wow.
Who I've never met. I've only been friends with him on Douyin.
Oh, okay.
I never met him face to face.
Douyin is the TikTok Chinese version.
Yeah, well, it is
it is a TikTok.
TikTok is the American version of Douyin. Right. And so we talked, and he said, "Yeah, I've got a 1965 Fender American Precision bass. This is an expensive, rare bass, collectible bass." And he's like, I'll send it to you. And you can for the show, but I'll send it to you. You can practice with it for 2 months and then use it for the show. Sight unseen, the guy sends a very expensive bass. You just wouldn't get that anywhere else. The
trust,
the level of trust that I'm blown away by it. Emotionally blown away by just
that's rare.
Care for that. The trust as well. But I mean, we've known each other, and he's seen my videos, and he knows that I'm very particular about taking care of my guitar equipment and things like that. But still, if someone in Canada was like, hey, can you send me one of your most expensive guitars and ship it across the country? I'd be, no. You go buy your own. That's what you can do.